Wysteria, energy, twister.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and the stories of Britanny. The Princess of Tronkolaine we are on now. There was once an old charcoal burner who had 26 grandchildren. For 25 of them he had no great difficulty in procuring godparents, but for the 26th that, alas, was a different story. Godmothers, indeed, were to be found in plenty, but he could not find anyone to act as godfather. As he wandered disconsolately along the high road, dwelling on his bad luck, he saw a fine carriage coming toward him. Its occupant, no less a personage than the king himself. The old man made an obeisance so low that the king was amused, and threw him a handful of silver. "My good man," he said, "here are alms for you." "Your Majesty," replied the charcoal burner, "I do not desire alms. I am unhappy because I cannot find a godfather for my 26th grandchild." The king considered the matter. "I myself will be godfather to the child," he said at length. "Tell me when it is to be baptized, and I will meet you at the church." The old man was delighted beyond measure, and in due time he and his relatives brought the child to be baptized. When they reached the church, sure enough, there was the king, waiting to take part in the ceremony, and in his honour the child was named Charles. Before taking leave, the king gave to the charcoal burner the half of a coin which he had broken in two. This Charles, on reaching his 18th birthday, was to convey to the court at Paris, as a token whereby his godfather should know him. His Majesty also left 1,000 crowns, which were to be utilised in the education and general upbringing of the child. Time passed, and Charles attained his 18th birthday. Taking the king's token, he set out for the royal abode. As he went, he encountered an old man, who warned him, on no account, to drink from a certain well, but he would pass on his way. The lad promised to regard the warning, but ere he reached the well, he forgot. A man sat by the side of the well. "You are hot and tired," he said, feigning courtesy. "Will you not stop to drink?" The water was cool and inviting. Charles bent his head and drank thirstily, and while he drank, the stranger robbed him of his token. But this he did not know till afterward. Gaily Charles resumed his way, while the thief went to Paris by a quicker route and got there before him. Boldly the thief demanded audience of the king, and produced a token so wickedly came by. The sovereign ordered the other half of the coin to be brought out, and lo, they fitted exactly. And because the thief had a plausible face, the good king did not doubt that he was indeed his godson. He therefore had him treated with all honour and respect, bestowed him gifts lavishly. Meanwhile Charles had arrived at Paris. Finding that he had been deprived of his only means of proving his identity to the king, he accepted the situation philosophically and set about earning his living. He succeeded in attaining a post as herdsman on the royal estates. One day the robber was greatly disconcerted to find the real Charles at the very gates of the palace. He determined to be rid of him at once. So he straightway approached the king. "Your Majesty, there is a man among your retainers who has said that he will demand of the sun why it is so red at sunrise." "Indeed, he is a foolish fellow," said the king. "Our decree is that he shall carry out his rash boast tomorrow ere sunset, or if it be idly folly, lose his head on the following morning." The thief was delighted with the success of his plot. Poor Charles was summoned before the king and bidden to ask the sun why he was so red at sunrise. In vain he denied having uttered the speech. Had not the king the word of his godson? Next morning Charles set out on his journey. Ere he had gone very far, he met an old man who asked him his errand, and afterward gave him a wooden horse on which to ride to the sun. Charles thought this a bit sorry a joke, but, however, no sooner had he mounted his wooden steed than it rose up into the air and flew with him to where the sun's castle towered on the peak of the lofty mountains. "To the sun, a resplendent warrior," Charles addressed his query. In the morning, said the sun, I pass the castle of the Princess of Tronkolaine, and she is so lovely that I must needs look my best. Charles, mounted on his wooden horse, flew with the answer to Paris. The king was satisfied, but the thief gnashed his teeth in secret rage and plotted yet another against the youth. Your Majesty, he said, this herdsman who tends your herds, let me tell you, he has said he will lead hither the Princess of Tronkolaine to be your bride. If he has said so, replied the king, he shall lead her hither, or forfeit his life. Alas, thought Charles, when he learned of the plot, I must bid farewell to my life. There's no hope for me. All at the same, he set out boldly enough, and by encountered the old man who helped him on his previous mission. To him Charles confided his troubles, begging for advice and assistance. The old man pondered. Return to the court, he said, and ask the king to give you 3 ships, one laden with oatmeal, another with bacon, and a third with salt meat. Then sail on till you come to the island covered with ants. To their monarch, the Ant King, make a present of cargo for oatmeal. He will direct you to the second island, whereon dwell fierce lions. Fear them not. Present your cargo of bacon to their king, and he will become your friend. Yet a third island you will touch, inhabited only by sparrowhawks. Give to their king your cargo of salt meat, and he will show you the abode of the princess. Charles thanked the sage for his advice, which he promptly proceeded to follow. The king granted him the 3 ships, and he sailed away in search of the princess. Indeed, when he came to the first island, it was swarming with ants. So he gave up his cargo of grain, and won the friendship of the little creatures. The second island, he unloaded the bacon, which he presented to the king of lions, while at the third he gave the salt beef to the king of the sparrowhawks, who directed him how to come to the object of his quest. Each monarch bade Charles summon him instantly if he was in need of assistance. Setting sail from the island of sparrowhawks, the youth arrived at length at the abode of the princess. She was seated under an orange tree, and as Charles gazed upon her, he thought, what a most beautiful woman, the most beautiful in the world, as indeed she was. The princess, looking up, beheld a comely youth, beneath whose ardent gaze her eyes fell. Smiling graciously, she invited him into her castle, and, be nothing loath, followed her into the great hall, where tempting viands were spread before him. When he had supped, he made known his errand to the princess and begged her to accompany him to Paris. She agreed only on the condition that he would perform 3 tasks set him, and when Charles was curious to know what was required of him, she led him into another room, where there was a large heap of every kind of seed corn, barley, clover, flax, but they were all mixed up. This is your first task, said the princess. Put each of a seed of its kind into different heaps, so that no single seed shall be out of place. You must accomplish this ere tomorrow at sunrise. And with that she left the room. Charles was in very much deep despair, until he bethought him of his friend, the king of ants, whom he begged help. Scarcely had he uttered the words when ants began to fill the room, coming from he knew not where. In less time than it takes to tell, they had arranged the seeds into separate heaps, so that no single seed was out of place. When the princess arrived in the morning, she was astonished to find the hero fast asleep and the work accomplished. All day she entertained him. Hospitality she had, very much indeed, in a castle. And at nightfall she showed him the second task. An avenue of great oaks led down from the castle, giving him a wooden axe and a wooden saw. The princess bade him cut down all the trees ere morning. When she left him, Charles called upon the king of lions. Instantly a number of lions bounded upon the scene, and with teeth and claws soon performed the task. In the morning, the princess, finding Charles asleep and all the trees cut down, she was more than astonished. I think she was the biggest astonishment she'd ever seen in her life. The third task was the most difficult of all. A high mountain had to be levelled to the plain in a single night. Without the help of the sparrowhawks, Charles would certainly have failed, But these faithful creatures worked with a will, and soon had the great mountains carried away piece by piece, dropping it into the sea. Now, when the princess came for the third time and found the hero asleep, he'd finished the task. She fell in love with him straight away and kissed him softly on the brow. There was now nothing further to hinder his return, and he begged the princess to accompany him to Paris. In due time they arrived in that city to be welcomed with great warmth by the people. The beauty of the lady won all hearts, but great was the general astonishment when she declared that she would marry not the king, but the youth who had brought her to Paris. Charles thereupon declared himself to be true godson of the king, and the monarch, far from being angry, gave the couple his blessing, of course, and great estates. And when in course of time he died, they reigned in his stead. As for the thief, he was ordered to execution forthwith, and was roasted to death in a very large oven. Well, that's a really interesting tale. Oh my days. These are the kind of tales told back in Brittany because they all hinder a most important lesson. I'd love to know what you think that lesson could be. Thank you for listening to this crazy folk tale, and many blessings.
Wysteria. Energy. Twister.